All right, let's start this thing. Major Dad Official coming to you from the Great White North with the cold hard truth. Let me make sure I'm recording on Zoom because I don't think I am. I am not. Edit. So here we go. All right, Major Dad Official coming to you from the Great White North with the cold hard truth. Cold hard truth is it's day 3 of birth in the first 100 days. What I'd like to tell you about, boy, it's not really good, is this. I know where you've been when it comes to expecting a child from a father's perspective. And I'll tell you what is somewhat amazing, and that is you don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know is absolutely incredible. And the reason I say that is this. I have been through the process of birth, raising children to adulthood, and then again, starting over at birth again, having been 55, fathering my last child, my 53 when I fathered my daughter, and 55 when I fathered my 4th son. And they are now 5 years old and 7 years old, respectively. 5-year-olds for the boys, 7-year-old for the girl. And the perspective I had seeing the results of my actions and what I did in the older boy's life is absolutely amazing. I'm going to try something here. I hope it keeps going, but the YouTube feedback is just too much for me as far as having both of them on at the same time. So I'm going to go here. I'm changing this. Once again, this may not work, but it's okay. Zoom. Okay, now I don't know where I am. That's awesome. Okay, anyways. What I like to do is go over some of the words that you've probably never heard before, but they're relevant to you as a new parent. I'm really wondering why I can't take the sound off of this, because this, man, is it, tell you what, it's very, very confusing having a time delay like that. I remember when I was stationed in Germany, that's how, what did we call on the Autobahn? Autobahn. Yeah, we used to be able to make a call to the United States and you'd hear an echo in it. And if you're quiet, you'd hear someone else talking like a trunk line. So they had this telephone cable that went underneath the Atlantic. This is back in 1983. Anyways, a couple of things for you new dads out there, knowing the difference between an obstetrician and a pediatrician. Remember, the OB is the person that's going to be delivering the baby, and the pediatrician is the one that is monitoring the baby's health once it's actually, your baby is born. And what I'd like to, I'll tell you what, it's mind-boggling the things I've found out in the last 8 years, having children again and being married to an editor of a child's magazine. And why did that happen? Well, she's an IT person who has a certain type of mind that likes to have organization and plans. And let me tell you something, when she found out she was pregnant, my wife, Jill, she went after it. It was an amazing, amazing feat of information gathering. Let's put it that way. what you may have never heard if you don't have children is what's called the fourth trimester. And that's what this whole series is about for the next 97 days is the health of mommy and baby after birth, the first 24 hours, the second 24 hours, and the next 98 days. They're absolutely critical when it comes to immunity, when it comes to development, when it comes to bonding, when it comes to so many different things, the psychology of the mom, the brainwave state that the baby's in. We just found this out recently from Neuroscience News that infant, day 1 to 1 year approximately, the baby spends most of its time in the delta brainwave state. And what's amazing about that is it's like the transcendental meditation state that Buddhist monks want to get into part of the time. And then also they're also experiencing their whole body. But what we want to do is optimize the first 100 days, and it's critical. All right, for some of you guys out there that may have a wife or a spouse, partner, whatever you want, I'm just going to use the term wife as a general term, that has gotten pregnant and that's not really showing yet. As they start to show around 5-6 months, they start doing these things called Braxton Hicks. These are involuntary movements where the stomach muscles, the muscles that will actually push the baby out, are being tensed and relaxed automatically by the parasympathetic nervous system, preparing the body for childbirth. So your wife will be walking, or your baby mom will be walking on, all of a sudden she'll bend over. She's like, oh, cramps. And it's like, it'll last for 10-15 seconds, then go away. May double them over, may not. But as they get closer to child delivery, they start the increase of the exercise protocol designed by the parasympathetic system begins to increase. That's kind of interesting. Oh, so a couple things you may not. One of the things is antenatal and prenatal and postnatal. What you might want to think about is the actual birth process. You'll be hearing this term as intranatal. So intranatal is going from one to the other, and you can think of it as ante to post. I want to give you guys some insight from a lactation consultant that is just an absolute joy to work with. I've already interviewed here, and she has a new book out. We'll see if we get her back on here to talk about her book because it's relevant. But what she said is so true, and this is after her seeing thousands of babies. And more often than not, the very first day that the baby is born, they sleep a lot and they're just kind of groggy, and bright lights and loud sounds. Now, remember, they've been in a water-filled environment, a liquid-filled environment. So she shows the first day, they're pretty mellow and they kind of sleep a lot. And she goes, but the second day, when they wake up and realize they're not as comfortable as they used to be, they are pissed off and they let you know it. And she says it's such a funny thing to see parents the first 24 hours going, oh yeah, this really isn't too bad. The next day, baby finds its lungs and lets them know that it's not real happy. But as far as what this is going to be, we're just going to talk about words. We're going to have some experts on board. We're also going to have different aspects about how to make the baby's mommy very, very comfortable after the childbirth process. Because let me tell you something, guys, it's no small feat to deliver a baby. Prior to 1900, the statistics I've seen is 20% of all births, that's 2 out of every 5. I'll just put it this way, 2 out of every 5 births, the mother, the infant, or both died during childbirth. And through history, and this is around 1900s, they changed one aspect of the delivery process, and it cut that dramatically to the survival rate. And the one thing they did, believe it or not, washing their hands. The medical professionals that were involved in the delivery process started washing their hands and becoming sterile. And they noticed a great increase in survivability of the mother and baby postpartum, i.e. after the baby is delivered. I want to keep the words in the podcast and in this video relevant to childbirth, because there are so many new words that you have no reason to know other than if you have a baby on the way, or if your wife's just experienced childbirth. I'm just going to go through the list. I'm going to read the first 30 today, and these are some that my wife and I came up with randomly. So the first one's amniotic fluid. That, of course, is what the baby is suspended and protected in the mother's placenta. Amniocentesis is the genetic test that they take some liquid out of the mother's womb and they analyze the amniotic fluid. Episiotomy, that is where they snip the base of the vagina by the anus to keep the skin from tearing. Anything that ends in otomy is the removing of. Ectomy means to cut. So think about that one. It means to cut. Talked about obstetrician. He's the doctor that takes care of mommy while she has a baby in her. Trimester is how they break down the major stages of baby development. Embryo, we know what that is. Zygote is the fertilized egg. We have a fetus. So it goes kind of along the lines of zygote, embryo, fetus. And the placenta, of course, is the organ that your wife grows. That's right. She grows an organ to feed and house and develop the baby. So that's not something that's standard equipment. Your mommy actually grows that to facilitate the growth of another human being. VBAC is a vaginal delivery after a cesarean delivery. And those are, I don't know the percentage of those, but my wife had that. She had a C-section the first time, and everyone after that, there were C-sections for all three of my older boys. We talked about induction. Induction is where you induce labor. There's drugs and hormones and methods you can use to induce labor if you're close. And it's like, hey, your mom's like, okay, I'm ready. There's a couple things you can do. Braxton Hicks, we talked about that. Those are the muscles that will be assisting in the labor process. We have APGAR. APGAR is a score that your baby will be given within minutes after birth, and then after a half an hour, some period of time. I can't remember what, but first they see, check its responsiveness, fingers, toes, does it blink with light, things like that. And then they take the measurement again. And this was developed by a nurse to help other nurse determine if children were, hey, everything's pretty much good here. No special assistance or requirements needed. Lightning crotch. I'm going to have to ask my wife about what that is again, but it has to do with, I think, sneezing maybe when you're pregnant. But that's, there's another one. And here's another one, guys. Your wife's bladder capacity will be severely limited once she's in the terminus of the pregnancy, simply because there's just no room. So if she had a pretty good ability to hold liquid before, it's halved or a third of the capacity. So they're going to be peeing all the time, and it's going to be frustrating to them. So hang in there. Just know that that's coming. Also, if you're early in your pregnancy, start getting into the deep squats. You need to start training your body, and here's why. At 8 and 9 months of pregnancy, women are physically incapable of bending over and picking something up. The only way they could get close to the ground is to squat. And that's not, I'm not trying to be funny. It's just, that's just the way it is. It's actually kind of humorous, but what you can do if exercise and flexibility is not in your daily routine, I highly suggest you start that to facilitate the ability to pick things up when you are in the late terms of your pregnancy. Why do I say that? I've seen it happen 5 different times. So it's not a guess. It's pretty much what happens there. So the next one is round ligaments. I can't remember what that is about. Diastasis recti is the separation of the muscles in the abdominal wall. Umbilicus, of course, is the life support system for the baby. Delayed cord clamping is a procedure they do to facilitate maximum absorption of stem cells and other nutrients and things in the umbilical cord. before they cut it. Stem cells in the umbilical cord, we just mentioned that. Vitamin K is a shot they give babies. Circumcision, if you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that. And there's reasons to have a discussion about that, as opposed to, yep, just go ahead and get your kids circumcised because that's the way it is. Well, that's not the way it is. Vaccines versus inoculations, group practice versus general practice. The fourth trimester, what do you know? It's up there again, antenatal and intranatal. And then number 30 is actually postnatal. We got an initial one in there, but that's okay. So 30 for everything after birth. So that's what we're talking about here, is preparing mommy and daddy for childbirth. Now, having done this for 25 years, I can tell you one thing that is for certain. It is a 24-hour-a-day occupation, and you could think of it in some ways as a job. I think of it more as a duty and an obligation. But if you look at it as a job, think of it this way. If you know you're having a baby, or your wife is having a baby, or babies are in the future, why not start training on the best ways to, one, guarantee the health and recovery and fitness and trajectory of your wife and baby after childbirth, as opposed to doing nothing or not knowing that nutrition plays such a key role in hormonal balances postpartum that will affect your wife when she goes through menopause. You heard me right. The actual recovery that your wife or the mommy of the baby experiences postpartum is directly linked to how they experience menopause. We're also going to talk about the psychology of if there are emotional or psychological issues before pregnancy, those tend to get magnified. So if there's some shit you need to work on, if you need to work on it before your wife was done, chances are you're going to have to work on it when pregnancy occurs and after it. And if you think you're different from everyone else, you're right. You're different because you're listening to me and you want to be informed and you want to know what's the best way to get to where you want to be. And that is a parent who has a child who thrives, and you're thriving right along with that child. And I will tell you this is, once again, I will deal only in facts. And if I tell you it's an opinion, it'll be my opinion. But here's facts. This is science. Both the man and the woman, or the two partners that have a child, both will experience these four things. The first is unequal workloads. Now, that can be mitigated by lists and checklists and procedures and techniques that we've developed that will help with that, mitigate that. The second is depression. That's right, men, you will be depressed just like mommy's depressed, and it's all about the hormones. And in men, I think it's a lot of in as far as me, you realize that you are no longer just responsible for you. You are now responsible for two other beings, one of which you helped co-create. So that's pretty heavy. And if you don't think it's heavy, then you haven't experienced it yet. The other one is social isolation. And we all know what that's like, having the pandemic since April. And then the last one is sleep deprivation. So going over the four that all new parents experience, you have social isolation, you have depression, you have unequal workloads, and you have, what did I say, sleep deprivation, unequal workloads, depression, and social isolation. Those are the four. And we'll talk about each and every one of those. We might pick one as a topic for that day. So for now, I'll just say if you're expecting, or if you have just had a baby, or if you know someone that's just had a baby, tune in, and we're going to give you some really, really good information that the wife has taken just enormous amounts of time and sources to gather, puts it all into one digestible piece of information that will give you just tremendous value and give you a kind of a North Star as far as expecting that baby and being trained to be a parent. And there's a whole bunch of things. It goes many, many layers, physically, mental, spiritually, financially. We'll be talking about all those things. So for now, I'm wishing you the best day ever and peace, love, and Northern Lights.